Unity and love. This problem will be solved by those two things, because that is the end goal of everything. It is the meaning of life, unity and love. I'm Deacon Skuta with the Archdiocese of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and it's a little hard being fifth in the batting order because what can I say that hasn't already been said? But I want to talk about, what can give us hope in the face of the crisis that we're facing. What gives me hope? Well, this document gives me hope. Laudato, the Pope's encyclical, recently came out and has created quite a buzz, and that gives me hope. If you don't know much about Catholic teaching, the Church makes statements all the time. As Catholics, we try to follow those things. But when an encyclical comes out, that is a really big deal. And in over 100 years of Catholic social teaching, there has never been an encyclical focused on care of creation, care of the environment. We have one now. Things that many of us have been trying to promote within our church, outside of our church. Now we have solid foundation in the Church's teaching to be able to point to. And it is a beautiful document. The Pope wrote it, he says, for all people of goodwill. It's not just for Catholics. I would invite everybody to read it. It's heartening, it's sobering, it's challenging. And there's so much in it that is good. Just to mention a few parts of it. And just the fact that, again, the Catholic Church, we talk about liberals and conservatives and that sort of thing. These are labels, but you think about the Church being a fairly conservative institution. It has put out a document that is conservative in terms of conserving creation, but is not what most people would call politically conservative, and that's a good thing, because we can no longer afford to be conservative in the way we are not addressing the issue of climate change. This is an ethical document. Science is needed and a great thing. We need to ground ourselves in it, but as John said, science doesn't tell us why. Science tells us how we can change this, but it doesn't give us the ethics for the reason of why we need to address this. So on those two words of unity and love. Unity is the theme of this document, and I think the fact that we have forgotten so much about the unity of this universe that God has created. We have forgotten that nature is a unity, that we can't disturb or damage or destroy one part of the ecosystem without affecting the rest. We have forgotten that we are a unity of humanity. We divide ourselves by race, color, creed, and 1,000 other ways that we talk about ourselves. But ultimately, we are one human family. And as the document says, we have forgotten that we ourselves are dust of the earth, that it isn't us and nature. We and nature are part of the same unity. And we have forgotten that nature and us as part of nature and God are all to be one as well. When we forget those things, we have the disruptions that we're seeing in our world right now. We need to see, so it's a challenge of our heart, we need to see that our concern for nature, justice for the poor and all of humanity, commitment to all of society, and an interior peace that flows from that, that is all one thing. That if we don't have every one of those things, if we don't have even one of those things, we won't have the others. But, conversely, if we feel, as the document says, intimately united with all that exists, the result then is that care will well up within us spontaneously. That's hopeful. That's caritas. That's love. And that is why I am frustrated like Sarah. I've been giving talks like this one on this topic for almost a decade now. The U.S. Catholic bishops put out a document much shorter than this one, but says almost all the same things in 2001. Global climate change, a plea for dialogue and care for the common good. We did talks around the Archdiocese. There were talks going on all over the country. We keep talking about it, but not necessarily acting on it. And that's where the love comes in, the caritas, that should come out of our hearts once we acknowledge the fact that, it's not just about me or my family or my city or state. It's about all of us. What will it take? Well, again, these are radical words that are in this document. It says, if I can directly quote, there is an urgent need for us to move forward in a bold cultural revolution. And what does that mean? The document talks about slowing down the pace of our world, slowing down to a sustainable pace of development, production, and consumption. We develop, we produce, we consume too much, too fast. We need to slow that down, particularly in the developed world. It will take radical decisions to reverse warming and poverty. It will take lifestyle changes and a healthy dose of environmental education. It takes moderation, simplicity, gratitude, sobriety, true joy, and love. If we change our hearts, then we will change our actions. What else gives me hope beyond the words that I've shared from this document? The youth give me a lot of hope. They are our future, they are our present. And I think in a lot of ways, they are ready to change the world, to change not only their own lifestyles, but our society. It has been said that the youth, the about 20-year-olds, 20 to 30-year-olds right now, they are the first generation to turn away from the automobile in America. That is a huge sign of hope. We talked about how much energy is used in gasoline and how much pollution is emitted. The United States, if you listed all the countries of the world, how much gasoline we burn, we are number one. And the amount we burn is more than the next couple of dozen countries after us combined. So the youth of this country turning away from the automobile, that's a huge thing. And that's just one example of how they are looking for a radical cultural revolution that the Pope is calling for. I don't think technology is going to solve everything, because as Sting said in one of his songs, I never saw a miracle of science that didn't go from a blessing to a curse. But there are some great technological advances that give me hope. You saw the facts on how solar installation prices has dropped dramatically. We are phasing out coal, not only in the United States, most of the world. LED technology using a fraction of the energy. There's great technological things going on, and those need to continue. I think also the public discourse is changing. I was at an event like this at Notre Dame a couple of months ago. Panelists, chemist, biologist, economist, philosopher. There was actually no discussion about whether this is going on or not. It started with, this is happening, what are we going to do about it? And the questions that came afterwards, no one raised that. It was all about advancing that discussion. Let's have more events like this that spend a couple minutes on the fact that this is going on, and most of the time on what are we going to do. And lastly, I have a belief. I am a scientist. I can't prove this scientifically, although I can point to some examples. I guess it's more of a belief that my biggest sign of hope is that I believe God created this universe, this planet particularly, to be highly resilient. And that as long as we give it a chance, it often rebounds better and stronger than we expect it to. Now, sometimes we go over the cliff. We have extincted many species which can no longer give glory to God or tell us something about God by their very existence. But there are points where there's no turning back. As John showed, there are things we can do where we can actually turn this around. Not in my lifetime, maybe no one's lifetime here, but we can actually start getting this going in the other direction. And I believe that the resiliency that God has hardwired into his creation will enable us to turn this around with God's help. Thank you.